Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a very short window of opportunity here to speak with the Minister and Sam Oosterhoff. So I'd like to jump in and get started right away so that we stay on schedule. First of all, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I want to just give you guys a couple of housekeeping items so that we all know what we're doing. We're going to be having a question and answer session immediately following Minister Phillips' remarks. As I mentioned, we have a very tight window that the Minister is able to be on the call. So in order to streamline that process, we're asking anyone who has a question regarding the 2020 Ontario budget to raise them by using the chat function. That can be found on the bottom center of your Zoom screen. Just click on it and there's an opportunity there for you to send a message to everyone, and we'll make sure that we gather those and submit them to Sam when we get to that section. For the best viewing experience, we recommend that you set your view to speaker. That option can be found in the top right corner of your Zoom screen. That allows you to have the person who's currently speaking to be taking over your entire screen so that you get a better view. We do use social media to connect with our members and the public, and I am sure that many of you on the call today heard about it through our Facebook posts. We'd like to take a quick screenshot right now. If you prefer not to be shown as part of the gallery view, please turn off your video at this time. If you're okay with us showing your face as part of the group shot on our feed, please pause for just a moment now and give a quick smile where we capture the image. Everybody pause and smile. All right, it is now my honor to introduce Denise Potter, the Executive Director of the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, to open our town hall. Denise?
Thank you very much, Anna. As Anna had said, my name is Denise and I am the Executive Director of the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. And along with my peers, Anna Murray, Executive Director of the Lincoln Chamber, and Rebecca Shelley, who is the Executive Director of the Grimsby and District Chamber of Commerce, we do want to extend to all of you a warm welcome and to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us for the next 45 minutes during our town hall with Minister Phillips and our MPP Sam Oosterhoff. We're very pleased to be able to bring this important event to you and trust you'll gain some additional insight to further support your business during these unprecedented times that we're all experiencing. As Chambers of Commerce, our most important role that we facilitate is supporting you, the local businesses. Whether it's with key informative events like this town hall, an extensive range of chamber benefits, or other business development events and initiatives that we undertake, it's all to support the local businesses. At any time, please feel free to reach out to any of our West Niagara chambers. Rebecca, Anna, or I will be pleased to help. And now to move this event forward, I'd like to introduce our Member of Provincial Parliament, Niagara West, Sam Oosterhoff. Sam?
Thank you very much, Denise, and I want to thank you and Shelley and Anna for all your work, and I just want to thank the Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln Chambers of Commerce for hosting this event on very short notice, and I appreciate all of you who have taken the time to come and hear from the Minister of Finance for Ontario, Rod Phillips. Now, Rod has been extremely accessible. He's actually been on two teletown halls that I've held in Niagara West, one with just himself, and we had over 3,000 people, one from across the region, and we had over 8,000 people on that teletown hall. And again, this afternoon, we're very pleased to be able to welcome the Member of Provincial Parliament for Ajax and the Minister of Finance for Ontario, who's going to walk us through Ontario's budget. There's a lot in it. It's a thick document. I have it right in front of me. It's a little too thick, I think, to walk all the way through this evening, Rod, but we are going to be talking about some of the specifics that are supportive for businesses and job creators here in Niagara, but of course across the province. So I'm wondering, Rod, if you'd be willing to open up by explaining really the purpose of this budget, what it's building into Ontario, and why it's so necessary to ensure that we have the measures that are in place in the budget. And if you could walk us through at a high level and then perhaps at a bit more of a granular level, some of the pieces that are going to be most beneficial for job creators and small businesses that are on this call.
Well, my pleasure. First of all, Denise, thank you for hosting, and Sam, always a pleasure. Sam and I work very closely on many items related to not just the finances, but the other areas that are priorities from a government point of view and from his community's point of view. So it's always a pleasure to be with him. I'll speak relatively briefly in terms of giving an overview, as Sam suggested. I want to make sure there's time for questions because I'm sure there are some. But first, one question would be, why is there a budget in November? Well, some of you will remember back in March, we had planned our normal budget presentation, which would have been the end of March. 9 days before that presentation, a state of emergency was declared and the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. So we shifted gears fairly quickly and presented a one-year financial plan. At the time, I said, though, that I will present a more robust budget by November because at the time there was too much instability and it proved to be a very, very tumultuous time in the economy and certainly from a health perspective. And I'm glad we didn't present our budget then. But last week was the time when I wanted to present a multi-year budget because I think it's important that people have a multi-year perspective on finances. It's interesting the province of Quebec did the same thing today. I think you'll see it from other provincial governments. The key tenets of this next step in Ontario's action plan, which is to fight COVID-19, really is broken into three buckets: protecting and supporting both communities and our healthcare system, and then planning for the recovery, the third component of our economy. There's a total of $45 billion of expenditures that are targeted just at COVID-19 over the next 3 years. That includes some significant investments in health, $15.3 billion of additional support for our health system, close to $23 billion of support for communities and individuals. We're happy to talk about the details, but this would include a seniors tax credit for renovations for either accessibility or safety of 25%, up to $2,500, some dollars for parents, $200 for children under 12, a variety of important individual efforts, but supports, as well as at the community level, a $100 million community support fund through Trillium. I'll get into more details if people are interested later. The third area, recover, is very important as well. We're very focused on the fact that right now our businesses need our support, and we've been providing support, $1,000 of personal protective equipment, support for the businesses that need help in the areas where they've had further health changes. But we're also conscious of the fact that businesses need support in the future as well. So we've taken a very significant step for our medium-sized manufacturing and commercial businesses, reducing electricity prices by 14 and 16% starting in January to help make our particular manufacturing base much more competitive. I was in Niagara Falls for a fantastic announcement. One of our shipbuilding companies literally bringing shipbuilding back to Ontario. And this is a company that will save millions of dollars and now can be competitive in that industry again and bring some industry and manufacturing back to Ontario. But also on the commercial side, seeing tax reductions. Those energy prices that I just talked about, so energy first, will make our energy rates competitive with the Great Lakes states and lower than the US average, and also competitive in Canada. The other area, though, is with regards to taxes, property taxes in particular. So we are going to be leveling out the employer health property tax of your taxes. In Niagara region, in that case, it's going to mean about $2.7 million given back to tax-paying businesses, because those taxes today are 30% higher for education property tax than they are in other parts of Ontario, for instance, in Halton. And that's just not fair to the businesses there. A 10% reduction for commercial businesses, that'll be an immediate $6.6 million. We're also offering municipalities the chance, if they want to create a small business tax rate. This was something that municipalities proposed, and that would mean that if they wanted to reduce municipal taxes and create a small business tax rate, they could do that. And we at the province would match them again with the education tax rate. So a number of initiatives that guarantee that businesses will start to see lower costs starting in January and for the years going forward. We're doing this now because we need to plan now for the recovery. So I really do want to leave time for questions, but very excited about our Ontario staycation tax credit. I'd be happy to talk about that. We want to turn 2021 into the year of the staycation. That'll be big news in Niagara region, where so many people like to come and visit, and we want Ontarians to spend the time, traveling around our province this year. Well, it's safer to do that. great support for our long-term care system, a historic commitment to moving to 4 hours of care for our elders. This will put Ontario at the top of support and care for our elders. Many, many other initiatives around training, particularly for those affected in the hospitality and retail sector. $181 million of new training targeted those groups. So lots of good things for lots of communities, but I'd be happy maybe, Sam, to turn it back over to you or Denise and answer questions, because I think that might be the best way to get as much information out that can be useful.
For sure. Thank you so much, Minister. And we'll be moderating. I'll be moderating some of the questions for the next 20 minutes or so. I appreciate the Minister taking the time to chat with local chambers and local small business owners. We're going to give a little bit of time for people to get some questions in on top. I'm wondering, one of the big pieces I know that I've heard already a fair bit of response to is with regards to the manufacturing and, of course, industrial hydro rates. And so manufacturing is strong in Niagara, has been stronger in the past. We're trying to make it stronger again. It provides a very important source of jobs in the local economy, but also a lot of very small businesses, of course, that are hoping to see that commercial tax relief the commercial hydro relief translated into real savings for them. Could you speak a little bit about that hydro piece, what that looks like, and what that will mean when it comes to people's hydro bills? It's a big concern in the area.
Well, you know, one of the things, and I remember distinctly when this became a priority, and Sam, it was on your call, and it was a fellow named Dennis, and the Premier and I were on the call. And I remember Dennis was a industrial worker who had worked for a long time and named a number of the locations, but he had been now moving between 2 and 3 different jobs to try to make back that good middle-class living that industrial jobs provided. And I remember talking to the Premier and yourself after that and talking about how do we make a difference in terms of really making Ontario competitive again from a manufacturing point of view. We need to talk a little bit about why there is a problem. And this goes back to the Green Energy Act that the previous government brought in. They, to generate enthusiasm, I guess, for some different forms of green energy, they paid unsustainable prices for energy that Ontario didn't need. And that ended up adding to the global adjustment rate that many businesses have to pay, which caused our industrial and commercial rates to go way out of whack with our competitors. So when people were trying to steal a business from Niagara or from my riding of Ajax, they would go to the business person and say, look, you can get 10% off your energy. That's millions of dollars to you. And that and other things caused the migration of manufacturing jobs out of Ontario. So we've been taking steps before COVID, during COVID, to bring back manufacturing, to preserve manufacturing, being more sensible regulation, and other important areas. But we are now in a position where we need to make sure that we are competitive. And we're already seeing that. We already have 10,000 more people working in manufacturing in Ontario today than we did pre-COVID. And that's because our Premier and our government has put a focus on manufacturing, but the number one thing they were asking for was fair energy prices. So the government is taking on a 19-year plan to bring those energy rates down so we can immediately reduce for industrial energy, 14%, for commercial, 16%, make us competitive with the Great Lakes states, add to all the other great benefits we have in Ontario. This is going to be a game changer for us. It is going to mean that the provincial government is subsidizing some of those energy rates over the short term while those green energy contracts wind down. But that's an important choice that we made, because those jobs and bringing back that industrial economy is something that we're committed to. You've seen our profile, Ontario built, Ontario made. That's the focus we want to have. And I was down in Hamilton talking about that today. We're going to bring back more than just shipbuilding.
Thank you so much, Minister. I just have one other question, then we're going to go into the questions from the audience. My question is with regards to the employer health tax exemption, which obviously is a major issue when it comes to taxation levels. I've heard a little bit of confusion around that. Could you walk us through how that works? If you're a company that has a payroll of, let's say, $200,000, does that exemption apply to you? If you have $1.2 million, let's say, how does that apply? Because I know it's for the first $1 million. Could you speak a little bit about that exemption and what that means for savings?
So the taxes that we tackled, property tax and the employer health tax, are what the economists here at the Ministry of Finance call profit insensitive taxes, which is code for you got to pay it whether you make money or not. And we know that many people aren't making money this year. So we wanted to take our tax reductions where they would benefit everybody, particularly those that are challenged today. So the employer health tax exemption, when we entered into the COVID situation. We raised it from $450,000 to $1 million. That meant that 30,000 new businesses did not have to pay employer health tax. And even those businesses that are over that wouldn't have to pay it until the first million of payroll. Now, this is literally a tax on jobs. Every dollar of payroll causes you to pay a tax. And that's not the kind of tax that we should have during a recession where we're trying to bring back jobs. That was so popular as a temporary initiative that we've now made it permanent. So that means that 30,000 businesses that today have between a payroll of $450,000 and $1 million that would be going back to paying that tax won't be paying any of that tax. And that just seems like a smart thing to do at a time when we don't want to discourage employers from hiring people. And as we come into the recovery, we'll see more people being able to be hired because it doesn't cost an employer to pay the tax man every time they want to bring on a new employee.
Thank you very much. One of the questions, we're going to move over to the questions that I'm being told are coming through in the window. I understand one of the questions is what assistance and what supports are there for sole proprietors?
So we've put in a number of supports for I guess businesses of all types, including small proprietors. Most recently, two really important initiatives that are helping out businesses across the province are $1,000 for personal protective equipment for again those kinds of small businesses that need that support. There's a portal that will be going up, and Sam will provide the information, but we'll publicize it next Monday, where people can get that support. We've also provided support through our Digital Main Street program in cooperation with the federal government. So this is $57 million that helps sort of retail downtown businesses take their businesses online. We've already seen 20,000 businesses benefit from that. We had provided close to $1 billion of support through a rent subsidy program that helped 63,000 small businesses. We lobbied the federal government to change that program to make it focus on tenants, not on the landlords, and they've now put that legislation into the federal legislature, so that support will be coming. And of course, we've also provided a support, fortunately not needed in Niagara region right now, but we do know that there are still areas of the province where certain businesses are being pushed in Peel and formerly in Ottawa and in Toronto because of public health restrictions. So we've set aside $300 million to pay the property tax bills and the heating and electricity bills for any business that is put into what we call a control, or used to be a modified stage 2, basically where public health has to come and do a shutdown. Now that isn't the case today. It's not the case in my region of Durham, which is great. It's not the case today in Niagara, but we never know when we might need that support. So that support's there and available to pay those bills if we end up needing, because of public health reasons, to go backwards in terms of opening.
Thank you. I have a question from Jimmy with regards to the agricultural sector and, of course, local wineries. How will these supports, or what support is being offered to the agricultural community and local wineries through this budget?
So Jenny, of course, like all other businesses, lower electricity rates, lower property tax rates, these are things that are going to benefit these businesses. In terms of our investments from an agriculture perspective in this budget, they focused specifically on support for our agri supply chains. We wanted to make sure that, food has obviously become, and locally grown food has become very important. So that's $26 million of support that's going to go to supporting the supply chain element of our processing industries for locally processed food. And then you'll recall probably in the fall and through the summer, we did bring in a number of supports through the LCBO from a promotion perspective, the expansion of the 4-liter wine options to broaden the base of Ontario wines so that they could be supported. So that's the support that we've provided most recently. As I do like to point out, this is the first act of a 2-act play. We have our November budget. We'll also have a budget in March, and we'll be looking through consultations with members of our caucus and communities at what we need to do going forward to try to make sure that we continue to support people.
Thank you so much. That actually ties in very well with the next question. We have Rebecca Shelley from the Grimsby Chamber, who comments that it's always encouraging to see the various levels of government coming to the table with increased support. But are there, beyond the measures you've outlined today, are there further initiatives in the works at the provincial government level? Is there anything you'd like to see developed in the coming months as we navigate what is sure to be an uncertain fall and start to the new year?
We've taken an approach which I think is now paying off, and which is what every other jurisdiction is now doing, which is because of the uncertainty, we've set aside significant contingencies in our budgets. And anybody who's run a business or a family knows you always want to have that bit of extra money tucked to the side. When we were first getting into this back in March, we wouldn't have known we would need 1.1 billion more dollars for PPE, for example, but we did. And we wouldn't have necessarily known we'd need 1.4 billion more for testing and tracing, but we did. So we set those dollars aside. So we have that ability to adapt. We've set up that kind of contingency as well for next year. So $4 billion of additional contingency to support our health budget next year, $2 billion the year after that. When it comes to supports for businesses, for people and jobs, we've set aside an additional $1 billion at this stage because we'll want to do what we've done since the beginning of the pandemic. Talk to communities, talk to chambers of commerce, talk to businesses, talk to our partners in the health and municipal sectors and education sectors, and find from them what the best things we can do to be supportive are. So we've set aside the dollars to do that, but we will work through the budget. We'll have our budget consultations for March, and we'll keep that flexibility as long as we're dealing with COVID-19.
Thank you so much. We have a question with regards to, I guess, a clarification around the changes that are being made to the property tax piece. What would that look like tangibly for someone who has a property tax bill? This individual mentions about $27,000. Quite a high property tax bill for their business. How is this framed? Which portion of that tax? Because obviously on your tax bill, there's a number of different aspects to it. Which portion is this, and what can this individual see on their tax bill next season?
So usually, and this would depend on the on industrial versus commercial. So for commercial properties, they'll see about a 10% reduction. For our industrial properties, they would see about a 30% reduction, and that's again because of that leveling out of rates. So it would depend for that business what its assessment was, it an industrial property or a commercial property. And this is on roughly the 40% of the tax bill that is education tax related. This does go back a number of years to the 90s when some of us were around and long enough to remember when the school boards used to set the tax rates and then fund education. What happened was the provincial government took that over, and now the provincial government funds education, but they still tax at the property tax level for that. And it's on average about 40% of the bill. So it's a significant part of the bill, and people will see thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars reduction. I'd say roughly, depending on the property, we're talking about 27,000. We're probably talking about 2,000 to 4,000, but that'd depend on industrial versus commercial. And that will start January 1st. So as you know, we usually pay our property taxes in advance. There'll be a reduction. And if the local municipality decides to use their power now to create a small business tax rate, there could be a further 30% reduction. But that'll be up to the local municipalities, obviously deciding on what works for them.
Great, thank you so much. We have a question from someone who started a new business, and it's Cam Johnson. He had started a new business less than 3 years ago. He's struggling to find programs that help with the new businesses. Is anyone looking at new businesses in this pandemic?
So Cam, first, congratulations on being an entrepreneur. I've done that in my life as well, and it's an exciting way to live your life. Very exciting, I imagine, during a pandemic. But it is good for you. It's a real point of pride to get to meet a payroll and to get to build a business and something to be proud of. We've set up something called Invest Ontario that Vic Fideli, our colleague who is responsible for economic development, is driving. This will be a series of programs that look strategically at areas where we want to be able to support businesses and business investments. That'll include smaller scale businesses, but is going to be looking to particular areas. So areas like technology, advanced manufacturing, life sciences, some areas of particular opportunity from a growth perspective. So that'll be one of the new initiatives that Vic has announced, and we'll be bringing more details about that again in that second act of this 2-act play. So we are looking to those kinds of areas for support. And of course, there are also a number of programs that exist today, but also through the federal government. If you're looking at exporting, and I don't know what your business is, and I know Sam, just like my constituency office, we're quite happy to help people access programs, whether they're federal, provincial, municipal. So there are some programs that exist that might be helpful depending on your business.
Thank you very much. We have a great comment from Anna, and it's one that I'm hearing about a lot. Niagara West, of course, we have quite a diversity in our sectors. We have everything from value-added agriculture to advanced manufacturing to construction to service industry. We've seen this pandemic, the economic impacts be disproportionate to particular sectors, and I think of, for example, a lot of my friends work in the trades, and they're actually very, very busy doing renovations and things like that. A lot of people seem to be doing things like that at home. But my friends who work in the service sector, and I know many on the call who are in hospitality and service, have seen disproportionate impacts. And so I'm wondering if you can speak about the importance of the service industry, but also how this budget is going to be supporting measures for hardest hit sectors like tourism, restaurants, and accommodations.
So when it comes to the workers and the people who are in those sectors, obviously we're all very sympathetic. We have seen some areas bounce back very well. I mentioned manufacturing, real estate. There are a number of areas where business is booming. But there are some areas, I'll call them the higher touch sectors, like tourism, like hospitality, where with, on average, we have 1.1 million Americans coming across the border usually a month. And that number's been more like 30,000 because it's just essential workers. And so just that alone tells you there's a challenge, and it's a challenge we're going to have for a while to come. So in terms of the workers that are involved, what we've done is targeted training programs, things like micro-credentialing and other skills programs, $181 million new dollars targeted at the sectors and those employees that have been hit. So, there are lots of shortages, as Sam, you were pointing out, still in the skilled trades area. We still don't have enough people who can drywall. I was with the Premier on Monday. We were at a training center for drywallers. Anybody who wants to watch that video, I think it's good that the Premier is a good Premier, because I don't think he has a future as a drywaller. But we need to keep training those people, and we want to shape the training for the individuals in the sectors that have been hardest hit. But particularly for tourism, we're going to be launching our staycation tax credit. We want to make, again, when it's safe, 2021, the year of the Ontario Staycation. This is a program, I can't claim to invent it. It came from the tourism sector, looking at things that had worked in other regions. And it's 20% of those kind of travel related costs. Now we're going to work with the sector to define that and make sure that we do that in a way that people can take advantage of, but certainly things like accommodation, the big costs associated with travel, where the provincial government will be willing to give you back 20% of those costs if you take a vacation here in the province of Ontario. Now, I don't have to tell people from Niagara how beautiful Ontario is, but there's other beautiful parts of Ontario outside of Niagara as well. So you could all, go visit the north or other parts of our province. And so this is something I think very targeted, will be very well received. And I think we're all, frankly, when it's safe, are going to deserve a vacation in 2021. And what better way to, help our neighbors out, but to do that right here in the province of Ontario. And then, Sam, sorry, as I said, but all of the other suggestions around property tax and electricity, these all help those businesses too. So that's why we focused on those broad-based supports as well.
Thank you so much. And we have two quick questions. I know you only have a couple more minutes, and I'll turn it back over to Denise. Really appreciate you taking this time and speaking with constituents. One is from Chris. It's with regards to not your ministry, but the ministry that works with you, the AGCO at MAG, and they obviously allowed patios much more this year, and that was a huge boon, I know, to a lot in our hospitality sector. I know another one that we are going to be making permanent was the delivery of wine and beverage alcohol with deliveries, which is obviously beneficial as well. He's asking if you see the AGCO extending the patio program into next year.
I can more tell you how I feel about it than knowing exactly what they're going to do. But I think we learned, and the delivery of alcohol was just one area, that we can make these kinds of changes, and the world doesn't come to an end. In fact, it's kind of nice. And I think this is the kind of thing where giving businesses, particularly small businesses and particularly restaurants, have been absolutely heroic in terms of how they protected their employees, protected their customers, and responsibly handled these new opportunities. So my view, for what it's worth, and if Sam's on side, then we got 2 votes, is that we should be extending those opportunities. Obviously, we'll work with our municipal partners, but we should be making it easier for people to enjoy themselves in a safe and responsible way.
I'm on board, so I think we'll have to start a little patio caucus, eh?
Patio caucus, I like that.
We have two real quickly. The business education tax. Could you explain who's eligible for that again, very briefly, because we had a question on that.
So really, that's a business, that's a property tax that is applied to all businesses, all commercial properties. And it's based on your assessment, like every other property tax. So, and roughly, and this is only roughly on average, it could be as much as 40% of that tax. And it traditionally went to pay for education. And to be clear, we're not cutting education spending, we're increasing it. I would never could say I was cutting education spending in front of the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Education. So we're continuing to increase education spending, but we're taking that burden off because it was just really unfair. A place like it was unfair in Niagara. In places like London, businesses were paying 30% more than places, let's say like Halton, just because the last government never got around to equalizing it. So but the total value is about $450 million back to business. And a number I learned today from our Premier, Sam, since this government was elected, we have actually put $5 billion back into the hands of business. And you know that it's our pleasure to do that because we know you spend it on jobs, we spend it on growing your business, you spend it in our local economy. So more to come.
That's amazing. We have received a knock from your team. We did have one last question with regards to women employment. And we've seen that the pandemic has disproportionately impacted women's employment. Can you speak a little bit about what we're doing? I know Minister Dunlop in that area has also done a lot with skilled trades and trying to ensure that there's pathways for women into the workforce and supporting also through childcare. And our ministry in the Ministry of Education is a key component. Could you speak about that?
So there was a disproportionate impact, particularly at the outset with regards to women. That has started to equalize now. So where we are back to about 97% of pre-recession employment on average, it's 96 for women because of disproportionately two issues, disproportionately women working in the hospitality and retail sectors. And that's why those training initiatives, targeted training initiatives we talked about is so important. The other issue that is coming up frequently is childcare and availability of childcare. So we've added through the Ministry of Education 16,000 new childcare spaces this year. That's a 4% increase. We're on target to add 30,000 more licensed childcare spaces. We also added our childcare tax credit, which is a credit of up to $6,000 for childcare expenses. So really we are tackling those twin issues of supporting the sectors that women work in and also making sure we continue to increase availability of childcare.
Fantastic. Minister, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Denise very quickly. I know your time is short, but we really appreciate you coming on and taking these questions from across Niagara West. And we wish you all the best as you go and explain the budget to many other communities across Ontario.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Denise, over to you.
Actually, I'm going to jump in, Sam. That's okay. So it's a triple threat here. We have West Lincoln Chamber represented by Denise, Grimsby Chamber represented by Rebecca, and Lincoln Chamber represented by myself. And we wanted to thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you also to those who participated by asking questions. I'd just like to reiterate that if anyone would like to ask further questions, please do reach out directly to Sam's office. Michael has posted the email address for Sam's constituency office. And we can also, of course, reach out to Minister Phillips' office as well. If you'd like to have more clarity, if you've got more questions, please do that. They would love to engage and discuss further.
Thank you so much, everybody. And if I can just say, first of all, thank you to the Chambers for hosting this. You've done incredible work through the course of this pandemic in terms of keeping your members engaged, and I appreciate that. But to everybody else on the line, I just want to say, I know that people who take the time to come to these meetings, you're leading your businesses, but you're also leaders in your community. So, you know, we have gotten through this thus far because the 14.5 million people in Ontario have been behind, you know, these challenges and helped. So thank you all for your leadership, and Sam in particular, thank you very much. It's an honor to be your colleague, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your community today.
Thank you so much. So we're going to say goodbye to Minister Phillips. But before I say goodbye to everyone else who's on the call, I did want to just speak a little bit about the Chamber's mandates and what we're doing. So one of the mandates of a Chamber of Commerce is to advocate on behalf of our members. And so that's why a call like this today was so important and really so meaningful for us. So again, thank you to Sam for helping to facilitate this. For the small business owners who are on the call, we recognize how challenging the past 8 months have been. And we do also recognize that the expectations for 2021 continue to be daunting for small businesses in particular. If you'd like to discuss the programs put in place and any other further details of the 2020 budget, as I said, please do reach out directly to Sam's office. I also want to encourage you to continue to invest in building and strengthening your business network and to tap into some of the many resources that your local chambers have put in place to support small businesses. Since in-person meetings are currently restricted, we've been embracing alternate ways to connect and engage. Here's a quick overview of what's planned at the 3 chambers. Please do reach out to our websites or to our offices to find out more details. The Grimsby Chamber is hosting 2 more virtual events this year following their AGM next week, an exclusive business brainstorming problem-solving session in late November, followed by their final Coffee and Connecting Grimsby networking session in early December. Please reach out to Executive Director Rebecca to find a great welcome from her to you to that event. The West Lincoln Chamber is in the midst of the Toonie for Toys campaign to raise money for the West Lincoln Community Care. Please consider supporting this excellent cause. They're also hosting a business brainstorming session in conjunction with the St. Catharines Enterprise Center on November 24. And the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce is launching their Explore Lincoln Business Tour on November 21st. This is a brand new initiative launched to encourage our communities to show your support for local organizations you already know and love, and to find some new favorites. We encourage everyone in our community to participate either individually or as a team, and it's free. Most of these events are free, so we encourage you to come on out and join us, continue to build your network, and reach out to us if there's anything that we can support you and your business. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.